Welcome in. I am Chad. This is my podcast, Not All There, a safe place where it's okay to not be okay and where it's okay to lose yourself before you find yourself. I'm here with my dear friend Missy, who is back for round two. And I'm really, really excited to talk to her because, their life is a strange fucking thing. And when you don't, well, you never expect anything. What you do think you expect never turns out to be the way you expect it. And when you're not looking, a big pile of shit just falls right in your lap. And what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? Well, I used to just get real fucked up and not want to deal with anything. And that did not end well for me. And it does not end well for a lot of us. And, one aspect of life that we are fully not prepared for is loss. And that loss can be a pet, a job. It can be a loved one. It can be a marriage. It can be lots of things. And for people, addicts, I'm an alcoholic. So for this alcoholic, as we like to say, a real big loss for me was the loss of my relationship with alcohol. And what you don't think about is that it's an incredibly intimate relationship that an addict has with whatever their fix is. It's the one constant. It sometimes lets you down, but it's the one that understands you the most. It's the one that you rely on the most, even if it does cause you immense pain. And when you lose that relationship, you feel like you are missing a huge piece of who you are. Because for me, being a fun-time drinker, that was my identity. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted to be, but I was a real good time to have at a party until I wasn't. And that went away. And fortunately for me, I found solace in running. I ran a lot of marathons and that helped me through. Then I found therapy and that has helped me get to where I am today. And a question I have for you, Missy, is what is loss been like for you in sobriety? You got sober at what, 18?
22.
22. Okay. So you had a little bit under your belt.
Yeah, I did. And I like how you say, our first loss is, our addiction, that was my first loss. It's, and the way that you describe it being an intimate relationship is so true. And it's only our coping, mechanism. And I was, willing to go to any lengths to protect it, and so by getting sober, right, getting sober taught me how to deal with loss. And I think recovery from addiction is about loss and how we deal with it.
Yeah, it is. So were your parents divorced? I don't recall. Okay, so how old were you then when they got divorced?
I was probably around 14. Yeah.
So that's a tough age.
Yeah, it was. And, looking back at that, I don't remember feeling a lot of loss around it. Like I was, starting high school and I was ready to go to high school and, be me.
Find yourself.
Yes. And I didn't really dwell on it. I just was kind of like, so I don't remember feeling a lot of sadness around it.
Okay. But it was there.
Yeah,
right?
It was. Yeah. It definitely was.
You just didn't know what to call it, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Is that when you started drinking?
It was.
Okay.
It was. And so I'm sure there's some correlation there.
Right.
But, people always talk about like, why they started drinking or, how it felt when they first started drinking. Right. And I never had those feelings. Like, I don't feel like a lot of people were like, oh, yeah, my first sip.
Mine was like magical. But yours just kind of happened.
Was not. Right? It did not feel magical. And people talk a lot about, when I could drink, I was the life of the party, or I could talk to boys, or, I felt invincible. I don't remember having those feelings. I associated drinking with fun. Like everything that I did that was fun revolved around drinking. And but I will say that I did not like being sad. I mean, who does, right?
Okay. Right. But you didn't know what to do with it.
but I didn't know what to do with it. And so I felt like drinking made me happy. Well, it's like they say in, the rooms, it's fun, then it's fun with problems, then it's just problems.
It's just problems.
And that was my case. That was true for me. But I never wanted to be sad. So I thought, like, if I could just drink and have fun all the time, I wouldn't be sad. So I think that's a little bit the root of it. And I don't know if it was just sad about my parents getting divorced or just whatever the sadness of the day
I mean,
was.
14 is a difficult age for any person.
Right.
And I mean, I remember that age, and I've always had an issue with my identity because meaning like, what kind of person am I? Who am I as a person? Right. And I'm finally starting to accept aspects of me because people keep reminding me all the time. I'm like, fine, okay, I'll accept it. But, at 14, I was a hot fucking mess.
Yeah.
And I was not going to drink because there was so much alcoholism in my family and so much destruction from that alcohol that almost out of spite, I was like, I'm not going to fucking drink.
Yeah.
And then 4 years later, when I had my first drink.
There you go. Well, and that's the thing also about it. Like sometimes I feel like it's good to look back and look at some of the causes why you drank, but sometimes I know so many people that came from, alcoholic families were like, I'm never drinking. And then here you are.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even though it doesn't matter. That's what they say. It's, it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't discriminate.
Yeah.
So, but I will say, the day that I went to treatment, I mean, it was like one of the saddest days of my life. I remember it. My mom was driving me, and I remember just tears rolling down my face. And it wasn't like ugly crying or hyperventilating, like it was just tears rolling down. Cause I was like, I would rather die than stop drinking. Like I remember praying that I would, like, we'd get hit by a car and my mom's life would be spared and I would die. Cause I was like, I can't do this. I cannot handle this loss. But then I got there and, AA really, it teaches you how to deal with life and loss. And, a big part of that is a relationship with higher power, right? So it changed my relationship with God. I always believed in God, but more as a creator, like, oh, look at the beautiful stars and sun and moon. Of course there's somebody, responsible for all of this. But I never really, and I went to church all the time and I could pray, I could say the prayers, but they didn't really mean anything to me.
So you didn't understand them.
No, not at all. And so when I got sober, I learned about how to have a real relationship with God of my understanding. And I came to trust that this higher power, was looking out for me and had my best interest in mind. And that was really new for me.
Yeah. It's the faith aspect that I have found that it's very important. Like, there are so many sayings out there in sobriety cliches, and I know this isn't specific to recovery, but it's a big one, that faith without works is dead. And what that means is, like, if you can believe and have faith that a circumstance is going to work out in your favor, but if you don't do anything about it, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So have faith it's going to work out, and just believe that, like, I have no idea how this is going to work out or sort itself out, but I just know that it will. And sometimes you got to hold on for the ride, but if you keep it up and you keep the faith, you'll be okay.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of my favorite sayings from the book, Faith Without Works is Dead, because it also implies that there's something that you have to do too.
Exactly.
You just can't sit there. Like sometimes that is what you need to do.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes just sitting still.
Many times where there is some work required from you. And it's usually hard work. And it's usually work that you'd rather not do, because a lot of time that work requires being honest with yourself in the situation you're in, which, nobody wants to do. But I will also say that the thing about faith is I didn't, when I first got sober, I did not have faith that I could stop drinking. But I was in this treatment center and, I was stuck there for a month. So I was like, all right, and they made us go to meetings, and I saw the people around me like living somewhat productive, happy lives. And I was like, what's going on here? And so at first, that faith in like other people was enough to kind of keep me going.
Exactly.
And then my faith in God got bigger, my faith in, the program as a whole. So faith is essential in dealing with any kind of challenge in life, but particularly loss.
Yes, it is, because one, you really do not know how you're going to mourn whatever it is. You don't know what that's going to look like. It's going to be different for each thing,
right?
And
at different times in your life,
right?
Based on your experiences up until that point.
Yeah. And if there's other people in your life that you, I don't know, kids or other family members, spouses, like, you don't know how they're going to take it.
Right.
And I currently am experiencing something like that, where there's somebody very important in my life that is going through some really difficult challenges in their relationship. And it's a challenge for me to have to like take a step back and let whatever is going to happen. And there are people that are also involved in this relationship where they're choosing to not do anything, thinking that it's just going to sort itself out.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that it's not going to sort itself out. I know that.
Yep.
And I cannot do anything about that. So what I have to do is have faith that however it's going to turn out, it's going to turn out in a positive manner. And it may take a long time for it to get positive. And that I would not be able to do that if I wasn't sober, if I hadn't done all this fucking work to sort out my own bullshit. There's, Missy and I met in AA, and, it's a big part of I think any recovery, whether you're using Alcoholics Anonymous or some other form to get recovered. It's all about the honesty. You got to be brutally fucking honest with yourself about everything, and that is really difficult.
Yeah, nobody wants to do that.
Well, and that's another format of loss, because you've created this identity. Well, okay, we take away the booze. All right, I lost my relationship with booze, my only true friend.
And then who am I?
Who the fuck am I?
Well, and like you were saying before, a lot of times, many of us start drinking at an age when we're starting to differentiate or find our identities.
Right.
I remember when I first got sober, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I like to eat. I don't know what movies I like. I don't know. Like, I didn't know, because
all I know is Taco Bell soaks up the booze. The best.
Run for the border, Chad. I mean, your new sponsor, Taco Bell.
Hey, man, they pay good. I'll take it, you bet.
But so, yeah, the identity piece. Yeah, so just being honest with who you are, where you're at, what's going on. And the other thing that AA has given me, and I think I was thinking about this when you're talking about your situation with your friend here, is the humility piece. I mean,
yeah,
every single step in the 12 steps of AA, almost every step requires some piece of humility, some act of humility. And just being able to say, like, I need to step back from this. I mean, and think about it before, like, probably before, who knows what would have happened if you had still been drinking. But many people, I know you're like, I can't even go there.
I
But
don't
many
even.
people, they think like, oh, I can help this situation. I can do this. And they're
Yeah.
trying to be helpful, but who, it's kind of like,
Fix,
who do
manage,
you,
and control. You
yeah,
can't.
who
You're
do you
trying to.
think you are
Yeah.
that you can fix this?
Right. You can't.
You cannot. And that's often what I think about, and especially in regards to loss, or things that I think I should have gotten, or things that I didn't get, or whatever it may be. And then I step back and I'm like, well, who am I to say what I should or shouldn't get? I'm not like, and it's this whole idea of, right, like letting go and, you know, having faith in a higher power that is really, right, like guiding you.
Your thinking got you to where you are.
Yeah.
And that thinking doesn't work. I'm sorry to tell you, people, it doesn't fucking work. Okay. Take it from me. They mention insanity in the Alcoholics Anonymous program. And it's true, because even now, dude, I still try and do the same shit and I get the same fucking result
Results.
every time.
Mm-hmm.
And, while you were talking about, well, the aspect of loss that you can't do anything for other people other than just be there. And, being there sometimes means you're going to catch a few stray arrows.
Mm-hmm.
And some of their anxiety, pain, anger, whatever that emotion they're feeling is, might get put onto you. And it doesn't have anything to do with you.
Right.
It really doesn't.
Most of the time it doesn't. And again, and that's most of the time it doesn't. And that's the other stuff that I learned in AA, is how to meet these situations and meet these people with a lot of compassion and a lot of grace. Right. I was given a lot of grace and a lot of compassion when I was using and as I was getting sober.
Yeah.
And now it's my turn to extend it to people who are struggling or going through loss.
If you don't mind, let's get a little candid with your story then.
Yeah.
So, you're divorced now.
Yes.
So when did that start? Because I know you wrapped it up like a few months ago.
Yeah. So the divorce was final in the fall of 23.
Okay.
But and my former spouse moved out in October of 2019.
Okay.
But I had known in my heart, right, that it was not going to work out probably in the fall of 2017. I knew something was wrong all during 2016.
Yeah.
And then the fall of 2017, I was like, yeah, this is probably not going to work out, but I'm going to do everything in my power to try to make it work. And again, it's one of those situations. I probably held on too long. I thought I could, right? I thought I had the power.
Motherfucker, man.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I thought that if I worked hard enough, I could get the result I was looking for. But, it takes two people to you willing to work at it.
So how did you, so once it was finally clear that was the end game, how did you get through it?
Well, again, so many principles of AA, right, prepared me for this moment. And, I've talked a little bit about some of them, one being a relationship with God, right? And trusting that it's going to work out. And you have no idea what that looks like. And it seems like it's the worst thing ever. And it seems like the worst scenario possible. But there's something happening, something's in motion that's going to be much better for you. So I had enough experience in life already in sobriety that I'd seen that to be true.
Right.
So I was like, okay. And sometimes even after being sober for 30 years, it's one of those things, you just got to fake it till you make it.
Absolutely.
Just keep going and keep going. And then one day you're not faking it. You really are making it.
It's true.
So that relationship with God, it was huge. And then the humility, practicing humility. And, we talk a lot about it in AA.
But humility for yourself, though, too.
Right. And humility for myself and just being humble by this about the situation too. Again, like who I was like, I just did not want to be a divorced person. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's this, I have found that the intensity with which you want something to be
Mm,
or not be,
right.
right, really distorts your ability to understand it. And I
Yes.
saw that
Such a good point.
happening in my marriage because I was so not wanting to get divorced. Like I just lost sight of what was actually happening.
And it was creating, like, it's probably
Yes,
creating a lot of damage
yes,
outside of your
yes,
orbit
yes, it
within or
was.
outside.
Yeah. And so this, and so like, who am I to say, like, I'm not ever going to be divorced? I'm not going to be, I mean, I can show up for life, but there's so much that I don't have control over.
Well,
Like this other person that was in my
exactly.
marriage
It's the other
that
people.
it's those
Oh,
darn
it's
other
those
other
other
people.
bastards that just,
Damn
if
it.
they would listen to
I
me.
know. But then, really, the number one thing I think that helped me through the divorce was, gratitude.
Yeah.
It's something. I'm somebody that has always been positive. I'm somebody that's always kind of looked at the glass half full, even when I was drinking.
Mhm.
But I never really used gratitude to help me like get out of like a bad emotional situation or help me through loss or grief. And I just was able to stop looking at like what life hadn't given me and started to see the beauty in what life had given me.
Yeah.
And there were so many good things happening. And I had so many things to be grateful for that I just really, really leaned into that, like on a daily basis.
And I I often, forget to do that.
Yeah.
And because we get busy, we get blinded, and we forget that often to have a positive day is to make it as simple as possible. And like maybe you have that one good towel and you got out of the shower and you're like, fuck, I got a good
Yes, I
towel
got it
today.
today.
Look what I have.
And Chad, do you absolutely, people think about like with great, being grateful and thinking of what they're grateful for. It's got to be like these really big, grandiose
Yeah,
things. I'm not joking you. Like I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so happy. I'm so grateful my arms and legs work. I'm so happy
exactly.
I get to go to work today. It's just a whole different perspective that AA gave me.
Hmm.
Right. And talking to other sober people and talking to other people. And and then the other thing that really helps is being of service to other people. And I know you
Yes.
do a lot of service. Like this
Yeah.
right here is
Yeah.
a form of service. I know you host a meeting at your house every week, and you have done that for a long time. I mean, it is a way to really get outside of yourself and get outside of your own stuff.
Hold the door open for somebody.
No, I know. Say hi to somebody,
Yeah.
smile
Smile.
at somebody. It sounds again so simple
But
and
you
a
have
lot of
no idea what
it.
that might have done for them.
Right, right. And so when you can be of service to others, then I think I talked about this last time too. Like because I had been in A for a long time, so many people had helped me,
Right.
and I had helped people too.
Right.
But when it came time to ask for help, I was able to do it,
Exactly.
you know?
You that's what I try to impart uh on people that I know inside and outside the program is that just try and do the next right thing because when you need it, you can call in the favors.
Yeah. Nowhere is it more true than in a recovery
Yeah,
community too. And, and I felt so supported and so loved. And so, it just made every day like much more bearable when
I,
things were really bad.
and I preach this all the time, especially specifically, I guess, and especially in the podcast, not just specific to the podcast, but you really need a group. You're not going to make it on your own.
No.
You're not.
Well, and they say, all the steps are like
Me.
we,
Exactly.
and and we've talked about this before. The steps are awesome, and they really have given me like blueprint in which to live a
Exactly.
meaningful life. And it's given me a way to um, live a really intentional life.
Yes, that's a good way to put
But
it.
but that being said, I would, if I had to pick steps or the people in a, I mean, I'd pick the people all day
Exactly.
long
Well,
because
if you're weirded out by AA for whatever reason, I get it. I was
yeah,
too, but whatever. I was desperate, so I tried it. And you know what? Go through the steps, give it a shot, and from there you can take what you need and you leave the rest behind. You just, this part worked, this part worked, and this part worked, and these three things are keeping me sober. Awesome. Then you just hold on to them.
yeah,
Nobody needs to know any different where you found them, right?
right.
Don't feel ashamed, like, oh, I got it from this sobriety cult. You know, it's like, oh, you're full of shit, man.
No, and I talk about this all the time. Like I take stuff from yoga, I take
Yeah.
some stuff from my Catholic
Yes.
religion, I take stuff from meditation,
It's
AA.
all
Yeah,
there with
but
everybody. They just want you to be a good person.
right, and it's all the same message.
It
It
is.
really is.
Help others
Hmm.
and do the right thing.
Yeah, and it's like be a good person, and well, and that's the thing I found about AA, and Rich talked about this at your on the last podcast you did about the net positive
Yeah.
discipline. And I feel like AA is
Yeah.
a net positive discipline. I
Oh,
get
yeah.
way more out of it than I
Yeah.
put into it. And again, it's just given me an enthusiasm and an energy to show up in life in a way that
Exactly.
I couldn't have ever imagined.
Well, to use that, the sort of a financial analogy is like, each day that you're sober and you work on being sober, work on yourself, and do the right thing. It's like putting a deposit in a bank,
Oh, I
and then
say that all the time,
and then
Chad. I
when you
said,
need it, you call it in.
every time I go to a meeting, whether I feel like it or not, whether I'm having a good day or a bad day, it's like putting money into the spiritual bank.
Yeah,
And then
it all sounds corny,
it's
but it's
no,
fucking
but
true.
then it's there when you need it.
Yeah,
And that's what I found. Like I found I had been practicing the principles of AA, for almost 30 years when I got divorced. And so all of a sudden I was like, what do I do? And I'm like, okay, I know what to do. Lean into some gratitude,
yeah,
right? Tap into that real relationship you have with your higher power. Call some people that, call some other
yeah.
alcoholics and tell them how you feel. And it all works. It all really works.
To continue on with you experiencing loss, we kind of talked about this last time, and I found it very powerful and profound, because while it is a significant loss in your life, the ability to be who you were and where you were made it special and beautiful. And I mean, your dad passed away. I
Hmm.
forget when, but I know that
Yeah,
it
in the fall of 23. So my dad passed away,
okay.
and then the divorce was final, and it was such. I just my dad passing was it's such a special time
Mm.
for me and my family in the sense that we got to witness it and we got to be there and I got to show up for it in a way that I never thought I would.
What did that look like?
Well, I will say also as a side note, I've been a long time practitioner of yoga and I
Mhm.
teach yoga,
Yeah.
and in yoga they talk a lot about like impermanence and non-attachment. It's kind of like the same principles in AA of being like we saying like letting go
Yeah.
and right like that kind of stuff. So I'm not somebody who's ever been really afraid of death or but I had never experienced it.
Right.
So I didn't know. Like I had these thoughts about it, but I didn't know when it came down to it, like what would really feel like. But it started with my dad getting diagnosed with cancer and moving in with me while he was doing his chemo, and he stayed. And so that was for like a year. And then maybe for the last couple months of his life, he got sick
Yeah.
and it was really hard to watch. We had a hard time walking and he didn't feel good. And he ended up having to go into the hospital. It was in his bones. And then they ended up putting like a rod in his bone in his thigh for the possibility that maybe he could walk again. And then he came home, and when he came right out of the hospital, though, so he was in a hospital for a week, and then he came back home and went right into hospice. And I just remember, obviously it was sad, but I also just felt like, again, who am I to say like,
This is how you should die, Dad.
right. And who am I to say like you should get to live longer and this isn't fair and no, like I'm not in charge of all of this.
Yeah.
And I felt like so lucky to have spent the last 2 years with him
Right.
that I was like I was able to just like again lean into that gratitude and be so grateful for what I had been given. And I was able to witness his passing and be part of it. And I got to be there for him. He knew I was there. Like, so he wasn't afraid. Like he didn't, I got to say to him, like, Dad, you did a really good job. You
Yeah.
can go. We're okay. And I got to tell him that I got to tell him that the last few years of my life, although had been some of the biggest challenges I had ever faced, were also some of the best years of my life
Yeah.
because of him, because I got to spend it with him. I got to tell him all those things. And we got to plan his funeral together. He got to tell
Awesome.
us like
Awesome.
all of the financial stuff he wanted done. He told us what he wanted.
Yeah.
And I wasn't afraid and he wasn't afraid. And it was just, it
You
was,
got to honor him.
yes,
You got to
yes.
honor him
Yeah.
your own way, but
And
also like he got to
yeah, he
got to
had no
do it his way.
regrets. Yes, and he had no regrets, and I had no regrets. And even now, so he used to sit outside every day, and so everybody knew him because we live on a street that there's like a path to the park and the
Sure.
school and
Yeah.
the church.
Yeah.
And so every day, just tons and tons of people would go walking by, and he was friends with everybody. He knew everybody's dogs, everybody's kids, everybody's names. And so this is the first summer that we've sat outside out front when my dad hasn't been there. And so people will walk by and either say, "Oh, we're sorry to hear about your dad," or "Oh, how's your dad doing?" Or "Where's that nice man that used to sit outside?" And I honestly like I don't get sad about it.
Yeah.
I get so filled with like joy, like, oh my gosh, my dad made such an impact on these people and they're asking about him and I get to remember him right now because these people are asking me. I mean, it's just I just find it so beautiful. I don't know. I mean, yes, I miss him terribly, but I just really and it like it was his birthday in June and
Mhm.
my siblings and we went to a Cubs game. He loved the Cubs. So
Awesome.
yeah, there was a Cubs game happening on his birthday. We went, so again, am I sad sometimes? Yeah, because I
Sure.
miss him. But really, for the most part, like I choose to lean into like the gratitude I feel for being able to have a relationship with him and to have been able to be with him in the last 2 years of his life in a way that a lot of people don't get to. And I mean, again, I just always say I can't believe it. And it's because of
Yeah.
program. It's
Yeah.
because of, because I'm sober. It
Well,
really is.
a couple of things that I picked up on and thought about while you were speaking was you mentioned that, yeah, I miss him. And yeah, sometimes I'm sad. And a big part of recovery for me is being okay with my emotions.
Yeah.
Like it's perfectly fine and good to feel sad.
Yeah.
Like if you miss your dad and it makes you feel sad, okay, that's
Yeah.
great. And it's a beautiful thing to feel that way. And you know, there's been some loss in my family, and certain people have reached out to me, and we've had discussions about how they're feeling and dealing with this person's death. It was sudden. They were young, and It was just a crazy medical thing that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it's shocking and it's very sad. Uh, but I your dad's not going to want you walking around feeling like shit
No.
all day. And
No.
the person that's gone, if you think about it, you tell yourself they would be so pissed at me if I walked around like sulking all day, missing them.
Right?
And it's like, well, flip it then. If they're on your mind, then honor them by being like, you know what, I'm going to play your favorite song.
Right.
Or there is a beautiful sunset. I know you would love seeing that.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of you. And that is something I would have never figured out if I wasn't sober. If I
Right.
had not done all of this fucking work, you got to do the goddamn work. And it is, I don't know, is as wild and intense and magnified as our culture is right now. There's a lot of beauty.
Oh, it's yeah, and that's what I was thinking about when you were talking about it's okay to be sad, and that going back to the very beginning of our conversation when I said I think I drank because I never really wanted to feel sadness, and here I am 30 years later, like really kind of just leaning into the sadness around
Yeah,
my dad's death and being okay with it
yeah,
because there was also so much beauty in it,
right.
and that is the thing, like again, I say like, A has given me like this way to live my life that is just so intentional and which I wouldn't have had otherwise. And it allows me to sit with both things, right? It allows me to get everything in life, right? Like the sadness, the joy, the ugly stuff, the beautiful stuff. You can't have one without the other,
Mm.
right? And
You can't,
so
no.
it's yeah, I just feel like if I want to be part of this life, right? You gotta be willing to take it all. You want you
You do.
to
Yeah.
deal with it all. And
You do. And you have to have those conversations. That's another thing that I've learned in sobriety. Like it's okay to advocate for yourself.
yeah.
That it's good to tell somebody.
Yeah, and it's okay. I mean, again, it's like these boundaries we,
Yeah.
between that most alcoholics don't have. And so now we get to practice, setting boundaries. So yeah, you can be like, you hurt me, but guess what? I still love you.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be so black and white.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Missy, this has been great.
Oh, thanks, Chad. I
Thank you
love being a
so
guest.
much for coming. I mean, you can come back anytime you want to.
Okay,
All
I'll
right.
be here.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.